I have walked through rooms heavy with silence, not the kind that soothes, but the kind that judges. I have stood at mirrors too long, searching for the soul behind my eyes, asking, is this enough? Am I enough? I have worn dignity like a Sunday dress, pressed and folded, only to let another's gaze reduce it to rags. And I tell you now, with the breath God gave me, there are things in this world that can strip a woman or a man of their shine, their worth, and their sacred thunder, not because they are not valuable, but because they have been taught to forget. I am not here to flatter you, child. I am here to wake you up. The first death of value comes when you forget your name, not the one your mother gave you, the one you earned through pain, grace, survival. When you let someone call you less and you answer. When you allow yourself to be defined by opinions that cannot hold your truth. Oh, it is dangerous. A soul with no memory of its power. You become a shadow begging for light that already lives inside you. You see, forgetting your name does not happen all at once. It is not a sudden thunderclap. It is slow, like water dripping on stone. A question here, a sneer there, the subtle shift in your own shoulders when you step into a room and begin to make yourself small. It begins with compromise, not the good kind that builds bridges, but the kind that burns your own. It starts when you let someone tell you what you are worth, and you believe them. They do not have to raise their voice. Their silence will do. Their absence, their neglect, their refusal to see you. And somewhere deep inside, you start to wonder if you were ever visible at all. I have seen bright women, wise men, tender children, all of them taught to mistrust their own reflection. They are handed labels like chains, too loud, too soft, too much, not enough. And they begin to wear those names like skin. But skin can be shed. Oh yes, it can. You must understand. Your name is more than syllables. It is the weight of your ancestors' survival. It is the sound of every no you've turned into a beginning. It is carved not on a birth certificate, but into the marrow of who you are. When you forget your name, you begin to chase validation like a thirsty traveler chases a mirage. You look for worth in the face of man, in his gaze, his praise, his touch, his silence. You hope he will name you beautiful. You pray he will say you matter. But child, no one can hand you your name. They may echo it if they are kind. They may try to rename you if they are cruel. But only you can claim it, wear it, protect it. I remember a woman, she had a smile like sunrise, but her voice had been quieted so long she forgot the sound of her own joy. She told me, I used to know who I was before I loved him. And I said, then love did not lose you. You left yourself behind. And oh, didn't the silence after that carry the weight of 1,000 truths? There will be people who try to define you by your flaws. Let them. You define yourself by your fire. You are allowed to carry scars and still be sacred. You are allowed to be both soft and unshakable. And if ever you find yourself doubting, look in the mirror and speak your name aloud, not the one the world gave you, but the one you know in your bones, the one that rises when no one's watching, the one that needs no applause to exist. Because a person who remembers their name cannot be owned, cannot be discarded, cannot be measured by the shifting winds of man's attention. A person who remembers their name walks differently, taller, slower, surer, not because they are arrogant, but because they are home within themselves. And when you are home within yourself, child, no one can evict you. The second killer creeps in soft, the hunger to please. You bend, you fold, you silence your no into a yes that tastes like dust. You wear smiles like armor, hoping they'll see your worth if you just hurt quietly enough. But pleasing is a thief. It steals your voice first, then your backbone, and finally your God-given fire. Do not trade authenticity for acceptance. That price is far too high. This hunger, it doesn't roar at first, it purrs. It whispers in your ear that if you just say the right thing, give a little more, forgive a little quicker, laugh when it ain't funny, and nod when your spirit says no, maybe then, just maybe, you will finally be enough to be kept. It starts in childhood for some, the learned dance of earning love. For others, it arrives later, dressed in the clothes of romance or family duty or workplace politics. But the steps are the same. Shrink, soften, serve, not from joy, but from fear. Fear of being left, fear of being seen and still not chosen. I have watched women pour themselves out like water, hoping to fill someone else's cup, only to find their own soul cracked and dry. And I say to them, as I say to you now, child, love that must be earned through erasure is not love, that is labor. You were not born to audition for belonging. You came into this world already enough, already holy. There is nothing more tragic than a soul who believes they must twist themselves into something palatable to be worthy of keeping. The danger is that this hunger does not just rob you of your time or your energy. It robs you of your truth. You start to forget what you want. You lose the sound of your own desire. You become a stranger to your own yes. A word that once meant choice becomes a habit, a reflex of resignation. You say yes to things that harm you, to people who hollow you, to silence that buries you. You become agreeable to your own and there is no glory in that kind of sacrifice. No crown waiting for the woman who disappears herself most gracefully. That is not humility. That is fear wearing grace like a disguise. Let it fall, let it unravel, because the world does not need another martyr with a broken spirit. It needs truth tellers, boundary setters. It needs women and men and souls who are brave enough to say, I love you, but I will not betray myself for you. Now, do not mean kindness should be lost. No, kindness is a gift. But kindness without honesty becomes a performance, and no performance can nourish the soul. Speak your no with as much love as you speak your yes. Walk away when staying would cost you your self-respect. And know that saying I matter does not make you selfish. It makes you sane. Because when you stop chasing approval, you start attracting truth. And truth will always call you by your real name. When you no longer seek to be pleasing, you begin to be powerful. And let me tell you, child, pleasing may win you a seat at someone else's table, but only power will give you the strength to build your own. Third is comparison, the silent assassin. You start looking sideways instead of inward. Her walk is smoother, his voice is louder, their applause is greater. And so you shrink. You forget that roses and oaks grow on different clocks, that the moon does not envy the sun, yet both light the world. When you measure your value by another's ruler, you carve away at your own greatness. Comparison is a thief that wears a friendly face. It doesn't knock down your door. It comes through the cracks in your confidence. It enters while you scroll, while you sit in quiet rooms, while you measure your life against someone else's highlight reel. It speaks in whispers. You should be more like her. He's already there. Why aren't you? They have love, money, status. What do you have? And without meaning to, you begin to hand over your joy piece by piece to people who don't even know they're holding it. You don't need to be told you are behind. You start telling yourself, and here is the lie, that worth can be ranked, that your value is a competition and your success a race. But life is not a contest of timelines or talents. Life, real life, is a garden. And everything does not bloom in the same season. The cherry blossom does not ask the pine tree why it takes so long to grow tall. The river does not compare its path to the rain. All of nature is content to be exactly what it is, and yet we the ones gifted with thought and soul, are the quickest to forget that our beauty is not in sameness, but in difference. I remember watching a girl, bright, capable, radiant, fold herself into smaller and smaller pieces, trying to match someone else's shape. She saw another woman's joy and mistook it as competition. And in that confusion, she stopped watering her own life. Jealousy, envy, resentment, those are poisons that do not rot the one you compare yourself to. They rot you quietly, thoroughly, and then you wonder why you feel so heavy. Let me tell you, child, that kind of comparison is not a motivator. It is a slow suffocation. You don't rise by watching another fly. You rise by planting your feet, lifting your chin, and remembering what only you were born to do. There is no one else with your fingerprints. No other voice carries your tone, your fire, your ache, your gift. So why would you trade your one of a careless spirit just to resemble someone else's idea of success? And the world will always offer you mirrors that distort. It will show you someone else's joy and hide their pain. It will praise loudness and ignore death. It will lift what is shiny and overlook what is sacred. Do not be fooled. Do not let someone else's reflection become your measure. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not less than. You are becoming. And becoming takes time. So stop looking sideways. Look inward. Look upward. And most of all, look around. Not with envy, but with awe. Because when you begin to celebrate others without erasing yourself, you unlock a kind of freedom no applause can buy. And that, child, is where your real value lives. In knowing you were never meant to match the world. You were meant to move it. The fourth killer is tolerating disrespect and dressing it up as patience. You make excuses for cruelty. You call it just a bad day. You allow hands, words, or silence to bruise your worth. But I tell you now, what you tolerate teaches the world how to treat you. Every time you stay where your spirit is not honored, your light dims a little more. You are not a doormat. You are a doorway. Walk through. Disrespect does not always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it laughs and then quickly turns its head. Sometimes it calls you by pet names while stepping on your boundaries. It makes you doubt your memory, question your instincts, apologize for bleeding when someone else has held the knife. And because it doesn't always come with shouting or broken glass, you call it something else: tiredness, stress, miscommunication. You start labeling mistreatment as love in disguise. But child, love does not come in disguise. Love stands tall. It tells the truth. And it never requires you to shrink. Disrespect is tricky because it often shows up in spaces we've been taught to treasure. Homes, friendships, beds, boardrooms, even churches. And when it comes from a mouth that once kissed you, or a hand that once held you, or a voice that once praised you, the confusion cuts deeper. You say to yourself, it wasn't always like this, or they don't mean it that way. And maybe they didn't, but whether they meant it or not, your spirit still feels the sting, and your spirit deserves better than survival on scraps. I once watched a woman I dearly loved sit across from a man who spoke to her like she was a servant in his story. He never raised his voice, but he lowered her dignity with every word. She smiled, she nodded, she called it maturity. She said, you have to choose your battles. But I saw the war behind her eyes, the battlefield where her sense of self was slowly bleeding out. And I wanted to hold her and say, the war you're avoiding with him is one you're losing with yourself. And we do it, don't we? We stay, we rationalize, we repeat, if I just love him better, if I just become easier, if I say nothing, maybe this storm will pass. But storms do not pass when you lay down and let them. Storms pass when you rise, when you shelter your soul, when you say enough. Because silence in the face of disrespect is not peace, it is surrender, and not the holy kind. Now, I am not asking you to hate those who mishandle you. No, bitterness is a poison too. But I am asking you to honor the space between you and them, to choose your soul over their comfort, to remember that forgiveness and boundaries can sit at the same table, and you get to choose who eats beside you. And if you have already stayed too long, been too silent, bent too much, know this, you can begin again. You are not broken, only bruised. You are not foolish, only human, and you are not a burden for asking to be treated like a blessing, because that's what you are. A blessing with breath, a miracle wrapped in skin, a light too sacred to be dimmed by anyone's disregard. So hold your head high, child. Walk away from any room that makes you forget your glow, and do it without apology. And finally, the fifth is the most cunning, self-betrayal. When you lie to yourself to keep the peace, when you abandon your dreams for someone else's comfort, when you pretend not to know what you know just to be loved a little longer, that is a slow death, my dear, and I have known it. The kind that leaves you alive but hollow. A beautiful shell with a silent scream inside. It begins with the smallest silence, the one you keep inside when your spirit says no, but your mouth says yes. All right, fine. It begins when you tuck away your desires like they're uninvited guests, when you place your truth beneath someone else's feet and call it compromise. And oh, how noble that lie looks on the surface, how graceful, how mature. But child, self-betrayal is not grace. It is grief dressed in politeness. It is an ache so quiet it fools even you. You think you're keeping the peace, but the only peace you're keeping is on the outside. Inside, there's a war between who you are and who you're pretending to be. You go on smiling, you go on serving, showing up in rooms that don't feed your soul, holding hands that shake your foundation, laughing at jokes that stab at your core, and people say, she's so strong, so steady. But what they really mean is, she's so silent. She doesn't ask for much. And that, my dear, is not a compliment. That is a red flag waved in the face of your becoming. There is a cost to self-betrayal, and it is steep. You lose yourself in pieces. You don't even notice at first. You give up a little of your time, a little of your joy, a little of your voice, until one day you look in the mirror and there is someone else standing there. Someone who is tired, someone who is polite, someone who is surviving, but not living. And you wonder where the fire went, where the laughter that came from your belly disappeared to, where the girl with dreams that could light up a room has gone. I'll tell you, she did not die. She was buried. Buried beneath your need to be liked, to be chosen, to be good. But here is the quiet miracle. Buried things can rise again. You are not lost, only hidden, not broken, only buried beneath the weight of who you thought you had to be. Dig, child. Dig with your words, your choices, your boundaries. Dig with your love for yourself. Stop lying to yourself to keep someone else comfortable, because the truth, no matter how heavy, will always set you free. You don't owe the world your silence. You don't owe a man your dimmed light just because he fears your shine. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Love that demands your disappearance is not love. And safety that costs you your truth is not safety. It is a cage wrapped in velvet. So come home. Come back to yourself. Say the thing you've been scared to say. Want the thing you've been told is too much, and let the world make room or move out of the way. Because the day you stop betraying yourself is the day you begin to live. And I promise you, nothing is more sacred than a soul that stands in the light of its own truth. So now you heard it, the 5 slow deaths that come not from the hand of a stranger, but from the quiet places where you forget your own worth. When you forget your name, when you hunger to please, when you compare and shrink, when you tolerate disrespect, and when you betray yourself just to belong. These are not wounds that show on the skin. They bleed inward. They steal from your spirit quietly, steadily, until one day you wake up and wonder where you went. But hear me now, child. You are not too far gone. You are not beyond repair. You are not too soft to stand or too late to rise. Your value was never determined by man, and so it cannot be taken by man. It lives in your breath, in your walk, in the dignity of your no, and the courage of your yes. It lives in your boundaries, in your truth, and the way you decide to return to yourself again and again, even when it is hard. You were not made to bow to fear or beg for love. You were made to rise, to speak, to live as if your soul is sacred, because it is. Do not wait for someone else to tell you that you are enough. Know it, say it, be it. And when you forget, as we all do, come back to this truth. You were never meant to dim. You were born to shine. Go forward with your head high and your spirit unshaken. Speak truth. Walk in honor. Guard your light. And if no one else says it, let me be the one. Good luck, beloved. You were made for more than survival. You were made to soar.